So we're talking end of 2001, um, with some encouragement from my parents. I have to admit, I ended up joining the church choir, which was a folk group in those days. Guitars, violins, some singers. One of the singers was a guy called Andrew, who'd recently graduated, but was still coming back to Cambridge at weekends to hang with his mates in the choir. And he was, I think, living up in Nottingham at the time, probably recording sounds of his mother cooking bacon, according to the famous stories. Um, but yeah, he was still coming back at weekends, and he was talking about this RuneScape thing and his ambition to launch members for it in the new year. Now, I didn't know what a RuneScape was. No one really did in those days. There weren't that many people. But his friends told me it's this mad thing Andrew's put on the internet where people click on rocks all day and Andrew gets money. Well, that's not really made it into the marketing copy so far, but that was how it was described to me. And I went away and read the websites. Because jagex.com and runescape.com actually had a sort of manual on in those days, introducing the skills and what you could do at each level. And I sort of fell in love just reading about the progression, the way one thing could lead to another. How if you could use a better bow, then it could fire better arrows, and with the fletching skill, you could make these things and unlock access to more and more as you progressed. And I thought, yeah, I've got to get me some of that. And yeah, made an account and started playing, free to play, because I figured, well, as an undergrad, I should probably not be spending my limited finances on computer games, so just keep it cheap and go free to play. So, of course, all the adverts at the top of the screen, and just played a lot. Eventually, once I'd done Dragon Slayer and sort of felt that the free to play world was complete for me, I was really gagging to see what those monks on the docks would take, that island of Entrana they keep talking about, and the gates on either side of Taverley. I've been standing next to those gates, spinning the camera. You know what the camera in RS Classic was like. It was kind of spun, but locked to various angles in between. But I'd been, trying all different angles to try and get a glimpse of a few tiles further and see what's out there. And yeah, I don't know exactly when I subscribed, but I did it and went through that gate and did Witcher's House and just kept going and feeling that this was a whole new world ahead of me, and it was so exciting. Anyway, from 2004, I'm coming up to graduate, and one of our mutual friends was about to get married. That early that summer, which meant that his friends in their shared house needed a replacement guy to fill up their third bedroom so they could keep making rent. And they knew I was about to graduate, so they offered me the room. I thought that was marvellous because, I really didn't want to move back in with my parents after graduating. And we're talking 2004, so it was still just about feasible to make rent as a bottom level employee if you were in a shared place, maybe. Anyway, so I wanted that all right and said, yeah, I'll look for a job in Cambridge then. At which point, Andrew, sitting at the table, I think he was drinking Guinness, said, well, you can always apply to the support team at Jagex. And that felt like exactly what I needed. I mean, I was about to graduate with an MSci from Cambridge. Customer support wasn't the obvious career path, but I wanted to work on RuneScape, and frankly, I'd have wanted any damn job that didn't involve moving back in with my parents. So I totally went for that and applied and got it.
Wow. So, but were you and Andrew pretty close at this point in your friendship?
Well, we hung out most weekends. He was still coming back to Cambridge every weekend or so to hang with the choir and hang with his mates. And yeah, I'd been round to the shared house I ended up living in to parties that Andrew would always be at because he was part of that group, even if he didn't live in the house anymore. He had lived in the house, in fact, And when I finally moved out of it and we had to clear it and try and reset it to inventory state, I found some slippers in the cupboard that might well have been Andrew's own bedroom slippers. Or they might not. I mean, he almost certainly didn't want them anymore, so he threw them away. But uh, it was an ongoing rental that had been running for 7 years. Andrew was one of the first people to move in, and he'd moved out. Another guy moved in. Another guy moved out. I moved in. I was the last. I was in the last pair to move out, and boy, did we get hit with a deposit bill for that.
I just think that's so cool that you literally knew the guy directly and had a friendship with the man that's changed millions of people's lives, basically. Like the sheer fact that after over 2 decades there's still a massive cult following to this game, and you were a part of it in the early days. What was Andrew like was he like a workaholic? Was he always talking and working on the game, or how was he in person when he wasn't at work?
He was getting to the point where he needed to draw a line between work thought and home thought. And I mean, that's just something we learned. Andrew's having an evening off, probably doesn't want to be chatting about work. And, well, it's rather embarrassing, actually. One evening I went to the choir practice and then we sat in the chaplaincy bar afterwards. And I mentioned I'd tried to sign up for membership that day because that seemed like fun chat and thought it would amuse him. And I mentioned I'd been unable to do so because the system didn't work. And he felt actually that's a fairly big problem for the weekend, so he left the bar and went home to fix it. And I realised I was going to have to be a bit more careful about that kind of thing, so as not to ruin his social life. On the other hand, he didn't. He just didn't have so many staff in those days. So if something went wrong, he had to fix it. He was the guy with the access to do so, probably, and he didn't have guys on call on contracts for that kind of thing. So if he wanted it done, he had to go and do it. And well, it's always a fine line between working out what you do tell to somebody in that situation and what you don't, because it will ruin their evening. On the other hand, people can't subscribe all weekend. That would actually have been a fairly big deal to him, I think.
Okay, so 2004. That is the year I started original RuneScape. I played for a few years until the trade removal and Wilderness got nerfed. But that I'm now I was just a kid. I was 9 years old when I first started playing, and I remember the game being pretty massive even that year 2004. But I don't know the whole growth chart of how many players started playing in the next like 3 years. But for you starting up until 2007, where all those changes were implemented, how much growth did the game receive, and what was the team like? Because I imagine the team was pretty small when you first joined, and I don't even want to know how like massive it got between just those 3 years, because I'm pretty sure that was like the golden years where the game just skyrocketed in numbers.
Pretty much. So I joined in July. That'll be 20 years ago in 2 months. So I'm rather enjoying the retrospective at this point. And they'd launched RS2 in at the end of March, 2 days before the end of Q1, as it was pointed out. Um, Now, I didn't see a lot of data and charts and the like, but I heard that when Andrew first launched a members version at the start of '02, end of February, he got 5,000 subscribers in the first week, and them that all $5 a month in those days, um, really felt like he'd got something there because suddenly he could move back to Cambridge and rent a house again, not have to live with his parents, which is so no more recording of bacon sound effects for the game. And then only a couple of years later, he could buy a house in the same neighbourhood, still near the same shared house of his friends, by the way. Um, and he could buy a car from the I think it was a Ford showroom that he'd been walking past to get to work or cycling past to get to work every day. He could just go into it and buy a car, and well, drive away that day. I don't imagine there was a credit agreement needed. So membership obviously didn't stay at 5k increases per week for long, but Andrew had set out a sort of progression of milestones and how they'd be celebrated. So when we got 50,000 members, we'd go on this kind of day out. When we got 60,000 members, we got this kind of day out. And they were, well, I think it was every 5,000 members, there'd be another treat to celebrate it as the milestone was passed, leading all the way up to 100,000 members. We'd fly to New York. Thing is, around 2004, and this may be something you'll remember, RuneScape did a deal with Miniclip so that RuneScape was available to play on Miniclip. And that got RuneScape in front of a lot more audience. It was an extremely effective marketing deal. Credit, I imagine, to Constant Tedder, the first CEO, or possibly to Andrew, who knows. And suddenly growth was so fast that it actually did accelerate to the point that we haven't got through the last jolly yet but we've passed the milestone for the next one. And another one, and another one. They're coming every week. And so by the time we got to New York, which was, I think, November 12th, 2004, if I recall, the company had actually was fairly on course to get near 200,000 subscribers. And it carried on. By late 2007, we'd passed the 1 million mark and had a massive party to celebrate that. Rented a field just outside Newmarket, had some fairground rides set up and a huge marquee, hired the amazing ventriloquist Nina Conti, who was doing that act with her really, really disturbed monkey. And also Goldie Looking Chain, I think they were. I'm not quite sure what possessed Constant to hire Goldie Looking Chain, but they did their Guns Don't Kill People Rappers Do song, among others, I think. And also a performer called Bruce Airhead, whose act consists of coming on stage, stripping to his swim shorts, climbing into a 6-foot balloon, bouncing around on stage in the balloon, and then the balloon bursts, and lo and behold, he's now dressed as Elvis. It is a very strange act. So that's how we celebrated.
That's that is awesome. Oh my god, just the details you remember on that. Yeah, I think.
I also
Yeah, yeah,
we
go.
got some ice sculptures made. Now, Jagex wasn't all just RuneScape. There was always the Mechscape project running in the background, of which I'd be very happy to chat later if you like. And to celebrate both parts of Jagex, Jagex commissioned some ice sculptures, great big ones, like 6-foot ice sculptures, of I think things from RuneScape or to things from Mechscape. And one of them was a great big mech, as you might expect. Great big stonking thing made of ice. And I think what people were trying to do was pour their shots onto it and then lap it off the ice. And one of our staff, apparently quite drunk, misjudged the face movements while doing this and managed to smash out 2 of his front teeth on the groin of a giant ice sculpture of a mech. It's an industrial accident you don't normally get at company outings, but it's stuck in my mind.
Oh my god, was it just blood like pouring down the ice after that, or what?
Well, I wouldn't lick something off of it, but then I wouldn't lick something off that area of a giant ice sculpture anyway.
Oh my god. It's funny you bring up mini clip because I mean that's how my friends and I discovered RuneScape, and yeah, I don't even. I mean, where did the idea come from to put the game on mini clip? Was it Andrew's idea, or did somebody reach out to him saying, "Hey, like we would like to have like a partnership with you guys," or how did that all work?
The business dealings of Jagex were always and are always still rather outside my visibility. My guess is that Constant, the first CEO, he existed to try and, help the business do what it wanted to do, which is write RuneScape and get people to play it. And how can you do that? Well, if you can do a deal with some gaming website to put your game on their website, it's maybe like an early version of, getting on Steam and getting in front of all their audience only, 15 years earlier.